all that being said, again, this is Georgia. She's a wedding photographer in NYC that is generous enough and basically just share with us her story about not just hitting page one of Google. So that's one thing I want to emphasize here. We're not talking about just hitting page one, but actually hitting spot number one on Google. And Georgia, I don't know for sure. I haven't looked on mobile today. Have you checked? Is it both desktop and mobile that we're seeing spot number one?
Still number two on mobile,
Okay. Okay. So to be fair, spot number two on mobile, at least for now.
but it's flipped me back and forth. So
Okay.
it's seeing me there a little bit.
Yeah, because I know we kind of saw it, which can happen. We expect that to maybe solidify here in the coming weeks. But I really want to bring you on here to kind of share a little bit of your story for a couple of reasons. One is like, we've had somebody come to us from New York City that was like, yeah, I would like to rank on Google, but I talked to some company and they said it's impossible. And you here now are literally spot number one, which I think is it's quite an accomplishment. So if you would just kind of give us a general overview of kind of like what your journey as a whole has been like so far, and just kind of introduce us to your world a little bit.
Yeah, of course. I joined Dream Clients 3 or 4 weeks ago. And it took me about 3 weeks to get to spot one, which I think your guarantee is 90 days. So I was like blown away by that. But I was already pretty heavily invested in my SEO before that, but I was at a kind of a standstill with it in like the upper teens, lower 20s. And yeah, I dove right in and couldn't have done it without you.
So, and I appreciate that, which I think you've done a lot of hard work leading up to this. Obviously, you've got good skills, you've got good work, you take care of your clients. Um, the period of time from, say, the beginning of when you and I started working together to ranking was about right at three, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to remember if it was like you hit spot number one. I think maybe it was like you hit page number one in like 3 weeks, and then maybe here in the last week after that, it was spot number one. So that is for us actually a record. So it is crazy because it's in arguably the most competitive city
Yes.
out of all of the cities, at least in the United States. So in my mind, I'm like, if it can work there, it should be able to work just about anywhere. And so I'm just like blown away by and of course you did stuff, right? Like you went in and you started executing on stuff. Um, for people that, let's say there's the person that's watching right now and they are, maybe they haven't even started their SEO journey. And so maybe think back to your journey overall, because your SEO journey didn't begin with my mentorship, right? Like there was some stuff before that. And so maybe tell us that story kind of with that person in mind, that helps us get a picture of what did it look like for you? What could it possibly look like for someone else? And and I know you've even kind of done some moving, right? So if I remember correctly, it was from Texas to New York City. So you've even got some of those sorts of details in there that, we have a lot of people that are like, yeah, I'm moving or relocating. And so just kind of tell us the big overarching story of your journey to the first page of Google, not just with Dream Clients.
Okay. Yeah, I started with blogging and like the basic stuff, I spent the last year. So when I decided I was moving from Texas to New York, I said, okay, I have no connections there. What can I do? And I dove in on SEO. And naturally, a lot of the advice that you see is blogging. So I did a lot of that and it helped. It didn't get me to number one, but it helped. Um, and what else? I felt like I had tapped out every resource. Like I did every podcast, every YouTube video, every blog. Um, I had researched like everything and it came to a standstill this spring. I was like, where else can I go from here?
So lots of blogging, it sounds like.
Yes, I did do lots of blogging.
Um, and that did some stuff, right?
Hmm.
It maybe talk to us about what you think came of the blogging side of things.
I think a big part of the blogging for me, I think it's still supporting me and being number one. I don't know, but I like to believe that. I think it shows like some authority in my location, but I don't think that blogging alone could have taken me to spot number one.
Yeah. And I'll to speak to this because part of doing these spotlights, something I love is that not only do we get to kind of cover some of your story, but there might even be some certain things that I can sort of elucidate on, expand on for you as you continue your journey. Because our goal for obviously for you and for people that are following this method is that they do rank long term for the years to come um, without constant ongoing effort. So, that being said, something I'd say is I'm not saying don't blog. However, did I show you Lee? Did I show you Lee's website?
I don't think so. I saw
Let's
Ariel
see. So
and
yeah, Ariel's another good example. I really like Lee's example. He's now yesterday he's kind of yesterday he was spot number one. He's been number one for a little bit. He's kind of doing the number one, number two battle.
yeah.
Um, but Lee is a good example, and he's continued to increase his rankings over time, and now he's sort of solidifying that first. It's still some battling going on, but just to give you a picture into how often he blogs. So there's January 30th of 2023. There's an August 7, 2021, September 10th of 2020.
Hmm.
You know, and
Yeah.
he's been on page one since I think March of 2020.
And I'm so used to cranking out those blog posts now that I'm at spot one, even just over the last week. I'm like, okay, what do I do now? Like, what do I like? Do I need to make a new post? But I don't.
Yeah, and this is where and you're still really fresh into my mentorship. You're really fresh in dream clients, and so it's cool because there's still going to be stuff that and really for you as we do this spotlight, like I said, my goal is to even kind of give you value as we also give value to the people that are watching on like, well, what are the types of stuff not only to rank, but also how do you keep ranking over time? So for instance, that question arises, well, if I especially if you were used to blogging all the time and now it's like, wait a second, that wasn't able to get me to spot number one. In instances it can prevent or hold back some of your rankings. Um, so it's like, well, what do I do if I don't have to do something all the time? And the answer to that is you really try to dial in the user experience feedback loop. So, something that we'll look at in weekly meetings would be like, okay, so as visitors come in, there's patterns, and the patterns are influenced by how they're engaging with the content. Now, it's one thing to engage and rank high. And I know you've already gotten a number of inquiries so far since you've ranked, but there's two things there. Increasing the amount of inquiries, so the percentage, right? So instead of getting which I don't know that we've looked at your baseline yet. So most websites usually get somewhere around 2. It can be 1%, it can be 3%. 2 is kind of the mid range. So if you're at 2, we want to look at getting to 4, 6, 8, 10. And that can be massive because either you grow your business and you do associates and you take on more volume, and or you just raise your prices. Because when you start getting so many inquiries, it's like, yeah, I've got to get really picky and choosy here.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that from where you are is the best time spent is in really looking at like what are people doing on my site and how do I make micro tweaks in order to make them more indoctrinated, sort of installing the dream client psychology. I think you've heard me talk about, if you haven't heard me call this or call it this, I'm sure you've heard me talk about the destiny buying phenomenon. It's that feeling when someone's like, I just have to work with this person.
Mhm.
Sort of figuring out the spots where that's not happening and then helping it to happen more, because it's one thing for your engagement to be good and it's very high engagement. And so like Google wants to rank your site. That's one part of it. The other part of it is then, okay, but the inquiries I'm getting, how indoctrinated are they to the degree that they're saying things like, yeah, I just felt like you're really the photographer for us. And then, of course, the other metric there, besides just the quality of the people coming in, is the VTI. Like, what percentage of people are actually inquiring? And then beyond that, it's just, okay, and then how often are they paying higher prices? And so that's where a lot of the next step that's where the next step optimization for your situation is going to come in. Um, that being said, I was thinking about how when you first came to me, we had a big long discussion, and you had asked, you were like, well, can you guarantee me that I'm going to be spot number one? And I was reminiscing on it, which I say reminiscing like it was a million years ago. It was 4 weeks ago. Um, but if you could kind of go back to yourself then, what would you say to yourself?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I was determined to get to spot one and I did. So I was like, I think I told you, I was like, I'm not gonna sleep until this is done. Um, I don't know. I'm happy with how it panned out. I dove right in. I like did way more than I needed to really quickly. And you don't have to do that. The course is meant to be, much longer than that. Um, so yeah, I mean, I wish I could shake myself and be like, do it 3 weeks ago. But
Right, right. Um, that's funny. Shake yourself. I love that. Which I mean, you didn't know for
yeah.
sure, and you still took that leap. And I think there's always like the risk in trying something. And I think that we talk about a lot of stuff here, and we're revealing what we do. So, um, maybe fill me in. Like, were you someone that had been in my group for quite a while? Do you remember how long you've been inside this group?
I don't know how long I'd been in the Facebook groups, but I know I became more engaged with the lives over the last like 2 or 3 months, like maybe since February, March.
Okay. And what was your, I mean, what was maybe your thought process as you watched some of those lives? Like, what was that journey like?
I think there was one where you were doing like website reviews, and I was like, man, I hope he gets to mine. And I commented my website, and you didn't. And I was like, I've got to have more. Like, I need answers.
Okay. Okay. So so the not choosing your website to review was the big kicker there.
But also, I think what really piqued my interest was one of the case studies that you posted about a planner in Los Angeles. And I was like, wow, if, you know, someone can rank in Los Angeles, like, I'm in New York City, that's a comparable market. Maybe like this could, be something that would be worth it for me.
Okay. Dig it. Um, and I'm making a few adjustments on the video because I think that even though I share the link, we've got some people commenting saying that it is private.
Oh my God.
So yeah,
No.
this is a new thing because I've never even seen this option and I have not even selected this option. I think I just fixed it, maybe. So I'm gonna check it again, but I'm halfway.
I'm gonna pull it up on my Facebook.
Yeah,
It does show
that's
private for me too.
what's it doing?
It says this content isn't available right now with the little lock button, like it's private.
Yep.
Like you can change your settings on.
Let's see.
Um, okay, if I
Because I
click on
think
the link, it looks like it pulls up.
I think it's actually I think it is letting people in
Okay, if I
because I
click on
see a
the
few
link,
people joining in now.
I think it's actually
it's
I think
working.
it is letting
Oh
people
my
in.
goodness. Okay.
Okay,
Because I see a few people joining in now.
All
I
right.
think
I
actually
hear me over
I think
your
it's letting
audio.
Oh my goodness.
oh my gosh, let me turn
Okay.
this off. Okay,
All
sorry.
right. So I see we have a few people jumping in here. Um, thank you for joining. And we may have to like sort of rehash what we've been saying because we've said a lot. Because Facebook has a new feature where you can like make the event private, even in the group. So this is a new feature that I had never wanted it to have. So thank you for joining in to hear us talk with Georgia about how she hit the first, not only the first page, but also spot number one on Google for New York City wedding photographer. Um, just a phenomenal thing that I literally have had someone come to me before and say it's impossible. The SEO agency told me it was impossible. So Georgia, we may have to rehash some of that for some of the people that are joining in live. So we're gonna rehash a little bit here, guys. But I encourage you. We've been talking now for like 20 minutes, and we did not necessarily know that people couldn't join in. So I'm going to highly encourage that you watch the replay. Highly encourage it. That being said, to sum up kind of what we said so far, number one, Georgia's a wedding photographer, and she's in New York City. She hit the first page of Google. Took about 3 weeks to hit page number one, and then the following week she hit spot number one on Google. Now, to be transparent, on desktop, she's spot number one. On mobile, she's kind of bouncing between spot number one and spot number two. And her mobile has been a little bit delayed over the desktop, which is not too abnormal. But all that to say is, generally speaking, she is spot number one. If you do a Google search on mobile, you might see her spot number two, but it kind of goes back and forth. And so, Georgia, if you would, now that we have like a bunch of people joining in here, now that this is working, could you kind of like reintroduce yourself and just kind of like share with us, like the stuff we talked about earlier, which is like what has made this sudden big change? Because you didn't like literally just start working on SEO. You've been working on it for a while, but just weren't able to achieve the first page rankings for the big cash money keyword New York City wedding photographer stuff. So just talk to us about that journey, what made the big change, and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So last year I made a move from Texas to New York City, and that's when I kind of dove into SEO. And I took advantage of every free resource that I could find online, podcast, Facebook groups, whatever. And I kind of maxed all of that out over the last year. Did a lot of blogging, saw some results from that, but I wasn't like number one for where I really needed to be. It was just like random blog posts. So it was helping a little bit, but not where I needed to be. Um, and this spring, I kind of came to a standstill and was like, okay, I've done everything that I know to do. And like, I don't know where to take it from here. So that's when I found you guys.
And it was the live streams, which is what we were talking about when we realized that nobody could see us, and then it got fixed. So you were talking about you had joined the group, and by the way, again, real quick, because I know we're going in the story, and some people are going to be like, "I want tips. Give me some tips." We've already talked about some tips actually, so be sure to watch the replay, and we will be talking about some more stuff. But where we got sort of interrupted was on you had joined the group, started watching some live streams. You had seen maybe where we had done like a website critique, and you were hoping I'd choose your website, and I didn't.
Mm-mm.
And so you were like, well, dang it. I guess I just need to jump on a call with him. Is that how that went?
Yeah, I think I was messaging with Michelle for a little while. Um, and then, yeah, we finally got on the call.
Yeah. And and I had asked earlier because you and I had talked for a while. And did you feel like it was informative when we spoke?
Yeah, I did.
Which parts in particular did you think were informative?
Um, like knowing more about the market that I was tapping into, and just, I mean, I knew, it's New York City, it's one of the biggest markets in the world, but um knowing exactly like what I could be reaching, and like what the capability of, me ranking on page one or spot one could be.
Yeah. And you can stop me because I don't want to go too deep here. But one of the profound things I thought that I think could actually be helpful for a lot of people, because what you've just done by ranking not only on the first page but spot number one on Google is it's like wild. Like I just want to make sure everybody understands that accomplishing that sort of thing is a very wild thing. Um, I'm imagining a version like I'm imagining a version of you 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago now that was like, you know what? I'm not gonna switch it up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm imagining this because I've had people come to me and say, yeah, I did the same thing for 6 years, expecting, and it's usually blogging. I blogged and did SEO stuff for 6 years. That's the record so far that I've heard is I did it for 6 years and just never ranked for my target keywords.
I did it for a year and I was tired of it.
Right. I and it's so interesting to me because like when we spoke, and of course, yes, we looked at your market, which I encourage everybody to do. If you've been on my live streams before, look, we've got the revenue calculator, right? If you have not seen that, if anybody has not seen that, just comment CALC, and I'll send it to you. The calculator is really cool. Helps you figure out what your rankings are worth, basically, like if you were to rank for target keywords, which means if it's not worth it, then you probably shouldn't focus on those keywords and or add more keywords to the mix. And you need to do more keyword research. But we use that calculator during our calls. But going back, something that was so intriguing to me as I looked at your situation, because I remember looking at your website and good stuff about your site, where it was like, you built up some backlinks, you were using some keywords. Your website aesthetically looks great. Um, I think that you let your personality shine through on your website, right? And so there were those aspects that were already there. It's like, man, there's just a few clarifying things with Google that if we could sort of dial these things in, I just think she'd hit the first page in no time. Um, but I remember it seemed like you were so concerned about making that leap. And when we talked about that, it seemed like it went back to, um, and I'm going to try not to be too like, I'm not going to put you on the spot here, but I remember it was tied to seeing yourself as someone that figures it out yourself. Is
Mhm.
that is that fair? Is that basically how you would sum it up?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of I think ego and like being a, self-starter. I can do it myself. I don't need help. I've always kind of been that way. So yeah, that was definitely part of it.
Okay. What what helped you to say, you know what, I don't want to keep figuring this out on my own, and make that switch to, you know what, I'm going to get access to just the stuff that works. I'm just
Mhm.
gonna I'm just I'm just gonna do it. What was the switch between that? I'm gonna use your words, the ego driven, I'm gonna get it done myself
Mhm.
mentality, to that, you know what? I just want the results so I can move on with my life.
Yeah. I mean, I think the results speak for themselves, and there wasn't really any denying that. Like it's very obvious. You have there are people in dream clients that are ranking in really competitive markets. So there wasn't really any denying that. Um, but at the same time, while it was ego driven, I think there was also like I told you several times, like I have no doubt that like this that like you know what you're doing. I just think it might be like a me thing. Like, what if it's me that can't be they can't do it, you know?
Yeah.
I'm in city after all.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think the results speak for themselves. It was like, you know, especially the Los Angeles market, um, those were really compelling cases for me.
That's probably one of the most similar in terms of competitive competitiveness.
Hmm.
Uh, okay. So, what are some of the things that you feel like have made the biggest difference to go from being stuck and feeling like you're not really making progress to then, like, I mean, just night and day difference?
Oh, there's several things. It's hard to say because I did so many at once, but um, you know, the backlinking, the extra backlinking, the podcasts, the um, keyword research and the variations that I did with that. And, you know, Google My Business. That was a big one for me, getting that profile verified. I think that helped a lot.
Okay. And just to elaborate a little bit, because the podcasting one, so everybody always goes, what in the world? Inside Dream Clients, we have a method for utilizing basically a platform that helps build up your website's authority. So we're you probably won't see Georgia become famous for podcasting unless she decides she wants to. But that's, you know, everybody's always like, huh, what? So it's a whole long thing, but it's something that we talk about there. Um, okay. The keywords, getting more clarity on the keywords, maybe. And I I think you had some competing pages. Yes.
Yes, I did. I definitely had some competing pages. So I had to do some work with that. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
So clearing up competing pages, which we've talked about in a live stream. Did you go to that live stream?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe. I think I thought that they weren't competing um, until I got in Dream Clients. And then it was like, yeah, these are
And you could
competing.
see it.
Gotta fix this.
Yeah. And I don't know if we ever really resaid this. And so for the people that have joined in later, once we fix things, um, Georgia had joined Dream Clients, my mentorship, about 4 weeks ago now. Right. So and maybe you already said that since people joined, but I can't remember. So just be safe when she's talking about Dream Clients. The next thing is like, I know some people are like, what is that? If you're not sure what that is, that's my mentorship. Okay. So we do this mentorship where we basically walk people through how to rank on Google in about 30 to 90 days. And it's the goal, and we talked about this earlier, right, Georgia, about user experience feedback loop, where our goal is to make it to where you're not relying on constant ongoing efforts in order to rank on Google. So Georgia also talked about earlier. um, she's like, okay, now that I'm number one, what do I do? Like, do I just keep blogging or what do I do? And I had shown where we have somebody in DC, Washington, DC, um, that they haven't they're today they're number two, but they've been number one and they'll probably bounce back number one. But they have blogged like not even once a year, right? And they've been ranking since like March 2020, so like about 4 years now. So I was instructing Georgia a little bit because Georgia is only actually like 1/3 of the way through because we go for 90 days, 3 months. So part of what we're also talking about here is, well, where does she go from here? Because a lot of people think of Google as like black and white, like I rank or I don't. And if I'm ranking somewhere on the first page, cool. If I don't, cool. But the reality is, like ranking somewhere on the first page of Google is good. And you know what, Georgia, I'll even pull up my handy dandy calculator here as we talk about this to sort of show this. Did you think the calculator was helpful when we talked?
I did. Yeah.
I think it's so cool. So, you know, we'll leave it at, oh, yeah, let's leave it at 40,000. So like if you're somewhere on the first page of Google, you might get a 3% CTR. So let's just say in this scenario, and again, this is for everybody watching. I want you to understand like the types of stuff that Georgia and I have spoken about during her journey to where she is now. Because all this stuff is sort of relevant, both in motivating you and helping you understand not only how to rank on Google, but how to rank high. And then also what to do beyond that. Because now that she's number one, there's other stuff that she can do still that will help her max out not only her bookings, but also the quality of clients, as well as the longevity of her rankings without having to do all this ongoing effort like constant blogging. So again, back to the calculator. If you're ranking on the first page somewhere, you might get anywhere from 0.5% CTR to 3%, unless you're in the top three. And then it's higher. So some people just get onto the first page of Google and they're like, yay, I did it. I'm on page one. They'll probably get some inquiries. In this scenario, if they have 3% CTR, which means of the 40,000 people that look for, let's say, I don't know, Minnesota. No, I don't know, Minnesota. Let's say New Orleans. I don't know why. New Orleans wedding photographer. Let's say there's 40,000 searches. That means 97% of the people searching for that are going to other websites besides yours. And then if you convert 2% of those 3% of the actual visitors and inquiries and you close them at 30%, meaning you book 3 out of 10 that you jump on a call with and you charge 4,000 average, you might make an extra $30,000. But if you're like Georgia, right, Georgia? And you're like, no, Jeff, you don't understand. I don't want to be on page one. I want to be spot number one, which is basically what Georgia told me when we talked before she joined Dream Clients, right? I mean, she was very adamant on like, basically, Jeff, I want you to promise me that I'm going to be spot number one. Like, Georgia, I can't do that. I can show you what other people have done and help you do that same thing, but I can't promise you. And she's like, but I want you to promise.
We made it happen.
We did. You did the stuff, right? So you get to take credit here, but yeah, there's a big difference between page number one and spot number one can get up to. So if you're in the top three, you're probably going to get, I'd say on the lower end should be 5%. So if you're number three, and look at those numbers, by the way. So we go from 28, and we're assuming a $4,000 price point. So again, if y'all are watching and you're like, hey, I want this calculator because I want to plug my numbers, comment CALC, calc, and I will share the link with you. To go from 3% to 5% is 48,000. So 28 to 48. Pretty significant. But then let's assume you get 10%. Now you're at 96,000 additional revenue per year. If you get 25%, you better start raising your prices because you probably don't want to shoot 60 weddings.
Mhm.
So if we say, we'll say 30%, you better start doing this kind of stuff. And actually, I tell you what, if you're at spot number one, your VTI will probably also go up just because of the sheer like authority of being in that position. So it wouldn't surprise me if out of the box where you're at now, I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing something like at least a 5% VTI, unless there's some other issues that we'll identify over the coming weeks. And so, this is one of those things, guys, like SEO shouldn't stop at just ranking. It should be like, well, hey, and this is the stuff that we work on inside our mentorship is like, cool, you're ranking, but also like how many of those people are actually converting into inquiries because we want to maximize that. So again, let's go back to 4,000 real quick. 4,000 with a 2% VTI is 288,000. If you all of a sudden you get a 5% VTI, you're at 720,000, which is ridiculous, right? So what maybe you do is when you hire associates and they shoot lower price. Maybe they shoot at 4,000, then you take the ones you want. I don't know, let's say 8,000. I'm not saying it should only be 8,000. Maybe you need to raise your prices to 10K plus. But you go, I'm at 5%, maybe closing at 30 at the 4. If I go up to 8, maybe I only close 10% at that. And then it's like, well, shoot, that's still too many weddings. Maybe you only close 2%. And that's still $100,000, which is wild, right? That's wild, but this is the type of stuff that happens when you play with, understand, and dial in the numbers. And some people, guys, I'll be honest, some people aren't going to have this much traffic in their city. You might in your state as a whole, but this is one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is they don't actually tap into the big number of keywords, which I think was part of what you had going on, right, Georgia? Like you were ranking for some keywords, but they weren't necessarily like the target key. Like what type of keywords were you beginning to rank for before you started Dream Clients and hit NYC wedding photographer?
Mostly city hall, courthouse weddings, elopement stuff. Not the big spearhead ones.
Okay. And when she says spearhead, because some people might go, what's spearhead? Right? She's got the jargon. Georgia's got the jargon. We talk about a spearhead keyword would be like your big money target main keyword that if you rank for this, it would make the biggest amount of difference in your bottom line. That's basically a spearhead. We explain some more, but that's basically what a spearhead keyword is. Man, we've covered so many good things, Georgia. One thing that, because I know we've had some people kind of like dip in and dip out and new people come in. Hearing you talk about the shift from I'm going to do this stuff myself to like, you know what, I'm done just struggling and I want to lay ego aside and I just want to get results. I still think that's so profound. And then to see you do something that other people would say is impossible is just mind boggling to me. And you've already gotten some inquiries.
Yeah.
Right. And book some calls from those inquiries.
Yeah. Got one in 20 minutes.
Okay. So which need to be cognizant of because you got to get going. That too. I love it. So for our viewers watching, what would you maybe give? Like, what kind of advice would you give them? Because there's, they're watching, going, okay, here's a person that is in a spot on Google that would seem so impossible. They're probably wanting to hear from you, maybe more than me, right? And so, what would you like to say to the people watching that would maybe give them value, point them in the right direction, and help them along their journey?
For me, it was a huge mental shift, like we spoke about. Like why shouldn't it be me? So why shouldn't it be you? I've done it in New York City. You know what they say? you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. And, places like LA, these are the most competitive places. And we didn't even touch on the fact that I've already started ranking in other random markets that I don't live in. So yeah, bet on yourself.
I love that. I love that. Now, but it almost sounds like a conundrum, right? Because it's like there's the balance between ego and betting on oneself.
Mm-hmm.
So, how would you explain the dynamics between those two? Like, how does someone know if it's like, well, I'm thinking in ego versus betting on myself?
Um, I don't know. I was kind of towing the line, I think, between like I can do it myself, and I think that was kind of the surface of it, but I think the root of it was more like, can I really do this? Like, is this possible for me?
Yeah.
Like, can anyone help me? Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many people have told me that.
Hmm.
And it's one of the biggest things that I think holds people back. So you're not alone in that. And I bet you someone watching now has probably had some of those same thoughts. And so what do you think? Maybe we're repeating ourselves here, but I kind of want to hit this from a few different angles because I know some people will hear it one way and then other people will get more out of it a different way. So again, what do you think got you through that point of going, maybe I can't succeed here, to, you know what, I'm going to bet on myself?
Yeah. It was definitely a leap for me. Like you said, I was like, I want to be number one. And you were like, well, I can't guarantee that, Georgia, but you can guarantee page one. And so it was still a leap. I didn't know what my results were going to be. I didn't know that I was going to be spot one in 3 weeks. Um, yeah.
So at some point, there's the sounds like commitment. Like I can't, I can't really know actually
Yeah.
unless I just do something.
Exactly. I didn't really have an option at that point, and I think part of the action of just investing in myself also kind of pushed me to like, hey, I'm leaving no stone left unturned here. Like, I'm gonna get this done. Whereas if I had been doing it myself and just like struggle busing it, there wasn't really anything on the line there.
Okay, so this is profound. So you're, I'm going to re-say what I think you said, and you tell me if I missed it or if we need to change anything. You're saying you didn't really feel like you put any skin in the game,
Exactly.
and that was tied somehow to the maybe I can't do it.
Yeah.
Am I is that hitting on the head, the nail on the head, or am I missing something?
Yeah. And I think, the monetary like aspect of it too. It was like, this is not, this has to work. This, if it doesn't work, it's, because it can't be because I didn't do everything that I knew to do.
That's deep. So those who pay attention is what we're saying.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
The first person I helped hit that, well, it wasn't the first person. It was maybe the second or third person I ever helped way back when. And I may have told you this story, but if not, you know, here it is afresh. If I did, then I'm going to tell it again anyhow. So sorry. They told me, Jeff, I think the reason I hit the first page of Google is because I, I, I spent some money and got skin in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually, the way they said it was, Jeff, I paid you enough money that it hurt my pocketbook. And I remember being so upset with that because I wanted him to talk about how awesome I was because I was a little bit more immature back then. And I probably not until 8 months later, I was laying in bed, 1 o'clock in the morning, probably. And it was like, those who pay attention. And there's something to be said about putting skin in the game. And suddenly there's some sort of deep subconscious psychological shift that opens up new things. And I've done that myself. It's dangerous. I think that the reason people are scared of it is because there are people out there that don't care. And there are ways to spend money that will hurt you. And there are people to spend money with that is either not the wisest option or potentially just scammy. I had at one point in my life spent it was a service that was with a company that did tax stuff, and it was $5,800, and they assured me they were going to help me do something very specific with one of my businesses. And just from I made sure on the first call with them, you guys can do this. Yeah, we'll do that. Like, you'll get in and we'll do that. When I decided to pay them, I'm like, you guys are going to do this? Yeah, we'll do that. On the inside, I had my first meeting. So you guys can do this? Yeah, we'll do that. Just do some of this other stuff first. 9 months later, I go, hey, when are we going to do that? And they go, oh, yeah. Here's the pricing for that. I'm like, but you told me you guys were going to do this. And then coming to find out, the way the tax law is written, they couldn't backdate the thing that they said they were going to do. They told me they could backdate it. And so therefore, the amount I would have saved on my taxes, it was over. Couldn't save it. It was lost. So they, all in all, I would say cost me, it was about a $30,000 decision. Probably cost me at least $30,000. And I remember feeling like, man, I don't know if I ever want to do anything else that where I spend money with someone because I think they could help me. And that was a situation for me where I was scared. I have actually invested in different things. But I think a lot of people come into the Dream Clients Easy SEO world, and they have done stuff and they've gotten burned. And for those people, I would just encourage you. I think you should keep betting on yourself and seeing that even if you have been, it doesn't mean that the real thing's not out there. The reason that there are fake Nikes is because there are real Nikes, to use a shoe analogy here. That being said, guys, here soon we're going to have to jump off because Georgia's got a call did you book this one from Google?
Yeah, they found me.
Okay, so because I helped her get to spot number 1 on Google, she can't spend as much time over here with me on Zoom. So shot myself in the foot. But that's kind of the reason we're here in the first place. So maybe kind of like closing things, 2 things. One is, if you've got questions, guys, go put those down in the comments. And if you haven't hit the like button yet and you want to get more of this kind of content, be sure to hit the like button because Facebook will show you more stuff like this. So let's, questions, put them down into the comments and hopefully I see them. I sure hope I do. If I don't, I'll try to answer them afterwards, and maybe we'll even get Georgia to, if she needs to, she might even be able to comment back, but hopefully we just see them.
Yeah, for sure.
And while you guys are doing that, Georgia, you said this earlier, but it was when Facebook was not working. So for someone, again, that maybe they've been working on SEO, they're at that place where they feel stuck, what would you tell them?
Bet on yourself. If you're going to bet on anything, better be yourself. Yeah, it's worth it. Jeff knows what he's doing. He's the expert.
Thanks, Jordan. Sweet.
You are.
Okay. And then anything else you want to add? No pressure, but if there's anything else you felt like might be useful for our listeners.
I'm trying to think. Not off the top of my head.
Okay. Woman, a few words.
But yeah, drop some questions and I'll scroll back through there and try to help.
Yeah, that would be good. That'd be good. Arlene, real quick, says definitely something about investing significantly in yourself and your business that causes you to keep striving and working on it. 100%. With that being said, though, guys, and then we're going to jump off. Dream Clients is invite only as spots are available. So if you are like, you know what, I want to take some tips away from this. Look, we're telling you what to do. Get a really good, engaging website that people want to engage with. You do need to get backlinks, still relevant, but you need to get quality over quantity. You need to have crystal clear keywords without confusion. So Google wants to rank you for a particular area and sees that you should be ranking instead of the other people that they already have ranking. That's the secret. There's a lot of tactics. And again, sometimes the reason people don't succeed is not because they don't have the right know-how of what to do. It's the, hey, here's what we do next. Hey, here's what we do next. So if you do decide you want to bet on yourself, like Georgia, just comment preview, because I'm going to send you a link for the Dream Clients Mentorship preview, which is a video for you to watch to get an idea of what it is. And then if you still think it might be something you want to learn more about, then you join the wait list with a button at the bottom. There should be a green button there. So again, you'll comment preview. We'll send you that link, and then you can take next steps. And when a spot becomes open, we'll reach out to you, let you know. That being said, Georgia's got a jet because she's got to go close the sale here. So go make some money, Georgia, and let me know once you do. And we're rooting for you. And thank you so much for being so generous and joining us here on Easy SEO Live. I'll see you soon. Okay.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.